And so we're going to adjust the format just a little bit. We were going to take questions sort of after each segment, but hold your questions and we'll take them all together towards the end. So I want to introduce Alice Bay. She's an executive recruiter at Hydrick & Struggles. And like I mentioned before, she's a previous panelist, so she's close to this event, and she's just got a lot of really good practical knowledge to share about the hiring process and the thought process for hiring managers. So thank you, Alice, for joining us again.
Thank you. It's good to see everybody here, and I think especially good to see so many young people here. So this is, I'll call it demystifying the interview process, if you will. Simplifying it so that it makes it a little bit more understandable. And I'm sure many of you have gone into the interview and thought you aced it and found out that the job actually went to somebody else. So hopefully some of these tips will help you to determine kind of what hiring managers are looking for as you go into the interview. So you write your resume, it's fantastic. You get an interview. Now what? You get an interview. So I guess that's where this presentation starts. So we're going to call this You're Hired, and let's make this a little bit interactive. Who has gone to a job interview in the last 6 months, 1 year? Anybody? Here? And what was the job that you applied for? A registered nurse. Was it assistant?
Registered nurse,
Staffer, got it. Great. So as you go through the interview, we're going to think about this in 3 buckets, and what to keep in mind. You'll see the arrow going back and forth across the bottom. It's not going to be segmented. It's not phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. These are all aspects that you should keep in mind throughout the entire process. So we'll call this bucket 1. These are the qualifications. This is what gets you through the door. Before anything else, the few seconds that us recruiters spend on the resume, this is what's going to be important in terms of just the black and white characteristics that's going to get you the interview. So as a registered nurse staffer, we're going to look at the qualifications, the experience, knowledge, technical skills, and functional competencies, let's say. So this is stuff that you can't make up. You either have it or you don't. It's pretty black or white. Do you have a college degree? Did you have past staffing experience? Do you have experience in Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, whatever it might be? These are just kind of the black and white essentials of what will even get you the interview, step 1. We'll call this bucket number 2, which is behavioral competencies and leadership. So bucket 1 is pretty straightforward, as we mentioned. It's kind of just a characteristic. So bucket 2 is going to be what differentiates you from the other candidates. So let's say use the staffing one as an example. This is really more how you do it, and this is really what you do and how you do it. So in my previous experience, in terms of the staffing, what were some of the characteristics that they were looking for in that position?
They asked a lot about leadership experience, outside community work, things like that.
Got it. So using, let's say, leadership or community work, etc., this is where you really get to show yourself and shine and give your examples of what you've done in the past. So if you're an immediate graduate or a student, this is going to be, were you the president of your choir group at school? Were you a member of the National Honor Society, which was used in the past? This is where you have a chance to really differentiate yourself from the other types of candidates. And we'll go into some of the interviewing tips after, but we have a good formula for how you can go through the process to make it a little bit more structured. Now, bucket 3, this is personally what I consider to be the most important, and this is going to be characteristics that really show who you are throughout the process. Your personal characteristics, your value, the motivation, personal style, interests, and personality traits. This is going to be everything from, are you late to your interview? If you're late to your interview, that shows that you are, maybe you can't get your act together, you're not respectful of other people's time, whatever it might be. This is everything from, you walk through the door and the receptionist greets you. How do you treat the receptionist that greets you at the door? Do you give them a firm handshake? Can you make eye contact with them? Are you polite to them? This shows motivation. When they ask you why you're interested in this job, is it because you're interested in a new challenge, or is it because it pays $10,000 more than your last job? Personal style, just how you conduct yourself, how you present yourself, etc. So I hope this really helps to kind of just segment some of the 3 buckets in terms of the interview process and how this really kind of brings structure in terms of what we're looking for. So going on to the next slide, interview guidelines. You will see a 1-page slide in your folder as well, and all of this information will be in there. So we'll go through this really quickly, and after this is the role play. So look out for these particular items as the next 2 people go through their mock interview. So number 1, before the interview, before you even step through the door, do your homework. If you're applying at Northwestern Hospital, don't ask dumb questions like, where is your campus located? Don't ask, just have the basic essentials done, prepared, so that you go in with the understanding of the position. They mentioned reading the position description prior to going in. Learn what they're looking for and have some thoughtful questions to ask. At the end of every interview, the interviewer is going to ask you, do you have any questions for me? This is not the time to say, how many vacation days do I get? Or how much does this position pay? This is the time where you have done your homework and have something thoughtful and meaningful to contribute to the conversation. Secondly is dress appropriately for the industry. So if you're going to a law firm, you're going to be wearing a black suit, probably a button-down collar shirt, pantyhose, I hear, is still in fashion in the legal industry. But if you're going in for, let's say, a startup and you show up in a suit, they're going to think you are stuffy, you're not going to fit into the culture, etc. So know your audience. So if you're going to a startup industry, you probably want to wear a button-down shirt and slacks or whatever it might be. And if you're going to a more formal interview, then know your audience, put on the suit. If you're ever confused, always err on the side of being more conservative, so dress a little bit more formally. The last thing you want to do is give the wrong impression by kind of giving off the impression that you don't care. Number 3, know the exact time and place. This goes back to punctuality. If somebody has taken 1 hour out of their very busy schedule to meet with you, you don't want to be kept waiting 15 minutes because you didn't know which L stop to get off at. So do your homework ahead of time and be prepared. Treat every person you encounter with courtesy and respect. This goes back to what I mentioned in terms of the bucket 3, the personal characteristics. So at my search firm, we do executive level positions. Our firm has done the CEO of Google. We've done the CEO of Yahoo. We're doing the CEO of JCPenney currently. We do executive level positions. And whether you're an entry level, first year out of school, or a CEO, this is still the case. Oftentimes, we will go back to the executive assistants who have managed that search and say, how has the candidate treated you in the process? Were they courteous? Were they respectful? Did they treat you the way they should be treated? So just keep in mind that this very fact can be what can, I guess, tip the scale in terms of you getting hired or not hired. Next slide. Offer a firm handshake, make eye contact, and smile. I just did a search. This is for a chief medical officer for a $10 billion organization. And believe it or not, he was eliminated from the slate of candidates because the interview panel said he was not able to make eye contact. This is somebody with 25 years experience making close to $1 million a year, and he could not make eye contact with the people he was interviewing with. So just show confidence, be personable, meet them in the eye, and just smile. That's important. So I'll skip the next one and just body language. This is actually something that you should also pay close attention to as well, things that we don't really think about. But if you're slouched over in your chair, you have your arms crossed, your legs crossed, that gives the impression of being closed off, and that's really not the impression you want to make. So sit up straight, lean forward towards your interview, make eye contact, smile, and all that other fun stuff. So something to keep in mind. Respond to questions and back up your statement with some specific examples. So this is what I was going back to earlier. We call this the SAR model, situation, action, and results. So going back to the nurse staffing position, it's going to be, they'll ask you a question. We have 10 nurses to hire in the next 3 months. What previous experience have you had in the past that can show examples of you being able to do this? This is the situation. So you can say, when I worked at University of Chicago hospitals, we were in a nursing crisis. We had just gone through a labor union strike, and we needed to hire nurses immediately. The next would be the action. What did you do specifically to make that happen? So in that case, you can say something along the lines of, I coordinated meetings with all the different department heads, found out what their immediate needs were, we prioritized what they needed, we went out into the different schools, whatever it is. What did you do specifically to contribute to that situation and come to more of a solution? Finally, it's the results. Because of your actions, what was the positive result from this? So you can say, due to my efforts and being able to coordinate across the different departments, etc., we were successfully able to recruit 12 nurses in the time frame, and everybody was happy, and the end. So this is just an example, just a formula to follow. When they give you a situation, this is going to show how you yourself have contributions to make and how your past behavior will be a good indication of future behavior. And lastly, this is the last slide, be honest and present your best self. This is going to go back to the referencing. In the world of social media, small connections and networks, you cannot get away with over-exaggerating your experience. So when they go back and reference you or speak with your references and what you say does not match up with what you told them, this is going to be a very big red flag of you being a dishonest person or unethical, or what have you actually done there. So don't sell yourself short. Certainly be confident and speak up your accomplishments, but at the same time, just stay within the limits and just know that being dishonest, that will eventually catch up with you. So finally, this is post-interview. This is a tradition that's, I think, slowly starting to fade away, but I think still makes kind of a point, which is the thank you note. So whether it be an email, a handwritten note, whatever it is, just make sure these people had taken time out of their day to meet with you. So take that extra 10, 15 minutes and send you a courteous thank you. And then lastly, be positive, show enthusiasm, and act like you want the job. This goes back to passion and presence. What can really differentiate you in terms of you getting hired is if you say explicitly, this is the job I want because, this is the position I want because it excites me, this, whatever it is, show the enthusiasm. If you're wishy-washy, they probably have 9 other applicants who are going to want that job more than you do. So don't be shy, be straightforward, and just tell them your intention that you actually want the job. So we'll go into some more Q&A later if you have any more specific questions.
Thank you, Alice. I just want to say that when I was in high school, and I'm going to date myself, okay, 1979 when I graduated. Marian talked about she graduated 2007 from Lane Tech. When I graduated high school, there wasn't any programs like this. So how lucky you guys are that you have other women mentors who can give you practical advice. So this morning we heard some stories, their life stories and their passion, and some wisdom, words of wisdom, right? Now what we heard was how to do technical things. This is how you write a resume, to think about it, and this is what you do during an interview. The next step is to really show you a real live interview. So we have 2 sets of interviews. We're going to call it interview A, and these are actresses. These are real live actresses. So Hyun Ko actually is not an actress. Hyun is one of our co-chairs, but she actually hires for a living. That's what she does. She's a hiring manager. So she's going to play the hiring manager. Hyun, would you like to come up? Yeah, so Hyun, give it up for Hyun. So, but we didn't know that she was a part-time actress until we started this project. And we have a real live actress, Jane O. Jane, would you like to come up? Jane O. Graduated from Northwestern and worked as filmmaker, and this fall she's going to go to the prestigious School of Cinematic Arts for Masters in Fine Arts at the University of Southern California. So Jane O, thank you. So interview A, listen, watch, analyze, evaluate, especially those of you who are in high school. You'll never see this anywhere else. Interview A. She needs a mic.
Hi Jane, it's nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you too.
Looking forward to meeting you.
Yeah.
So you applied for the position. It's a the entry-level position, and just tell me a little bit about yourself and your background. That would be helpful. So we're looking for an analyst in our credit risk department, and just looking to see, just a general get to know you. Just share with me some of your experiences. That would be great.
Awesome. Well, I was born and raised in Chicago, and I did my undergrad at Northwestern. Right now, I'm currently in my last year at Northwestern Law. And during my senior year, my final year now, I landed a prestigious internship at Kirkland & Ellis. So, yeah, that's where I'm at now.
Great. Well, tell me what interests you about our company and this opportunity.
Well, so I know that Cohen & Jing is one of the top firms in Chicago, and I really want to pursue entertainment law, and I saw that in your company, that's a very high field.
Well, tell me about sort of how much you know about our company. So what specifically about our company?
Well, I know that your company has very famous partners, and I just think that your very high-profile clients have landed a lot of, I guess, spotlight in society.
Okay, well, let me ask you, maybe switching gears just a little bit. Tell me a little bit about your past work experience. I'd like to hear about that.
Awesome. So this past year, I was interning at Kirkland & Ellis. Previous to that, I worked at a small legal firm as a paralegal. And during my time interning at Kirkland & Ellis, I got to participate in a lot of, very high-risk developments. I learned a lot. It was really fast-paced, and I was really thankful for that opportunity.
So did you have any challenges with that last role that you had? And maybe you can share a little bit about some struggles that you had or anything that you found challenging?
I guess one of the most challenging things with that internship was I had a very, I don't know if this is the best word, but difficult senior associate. And I know that a lot of times when I work with a senior associate, sometimes he was very condescending. But I'm not sure if it was just with all the interns, but I feel like it was sometimes difficult to manage.
And how did you deal with that situation?
A lot of times I just, try to be the bigger person and work around it.
Okay, well then, that's good. How about, tell me a little bit about what motivates you personally.
Well, one of the biggest things that motivates me is winning, which is why I love being a lawyer. I think that arguing is so exciting and so fun, and I'm really passionate about it.
So what do you consider your biggest accomplishment?
I guess the most recent biggest accomplishment was just my biggest win.
Biggest win?
Biggest win. There was a class this past year, and I was kind of borderline, B plus, A minus, and what I did was I scheduled special time with my professor, and I did extra curricular credits just to boost that score up. And eventually, that professor wrote my recommendation for me, so it was pretty cool.
Okay, well that sounds like a good accomplishment. How about, share with me some of your key strengths, what you feel are some of your key strengths.
I feel like one of my biggest strengths is being, a forward thinker. I always try to do things before I'm asked to do it. So, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. It makes me do more work unnecessarily sometimes, but.
Okay. How about, so one of the last questions that I have for you is, why should we hire you?
I feel like with my education and my experience, I'm a very positive person and I'm a go-getter. So, when I'm working with anyone from client side to, the actual office, I feel like I have a very vibrant and positive personality to work with.
I can very much see that.
Thank you.
So do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, I was wondering if Cohen and Jane had other offices besides Chicago.
Besides Chicago, yes, we do. And some of this information is already published within our company profile. But we have offices in New York, in London, and Hong Kong. And we're actually just opening up an office in Dubai. So there's a lot of opportunity because we're a growing company.
That's pretty exciting.
So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity in the company, and so we're looking for really forward-thinking, proactive, young, energetic people to join the firm. So, okay. So, but thank you very much for your time. I really enjoyed talking to you, Jane.
Thank you.
Jane O, interview 1, interview A. Young Moon is going to do interview B with Hyun, please. And Young is a recent graduate of Northwestern University Law School, and she will be starting as a first-year associate at the prestigious office of Skadden Arps. So she will do an interview for you, and you can decide what she did right or not. Interview B.
Hi, Young. It's
Hi.
very nice to
Very
meet
nice
you.
to meet you, too.
Looking forward to talking to you. We have a
Thank you.
very impressive academic resume, and so just very excited to chat with you today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Good, good. So first off, can you tell me just a little bit about your background, and we can just kind of start off the conversation there.
Sure. Well, as you know, I am a recent graduate of Northwestern Law School, and over the past couple years, I've really been able to take advantage of all the opportunities that Northwestern has offered me. I've worked in a clinic where I've had real client experiences, and I've got to work on some pretty interesting cases, and I've also taken a lot of classes with professors that have professional experiences in the areas that I'd like to practice in, and I think all that culminated together has really put me in a position where I'm looking to take the next step in my career.
Wow, that sounds really great. So tell me about sort of what interests you about this company and this opportunity.
Sure. As soon as I saw the opportunity pop up, actually, I went ahead and contacted some Northwestern alumni that work at your firm. I know there are a couple, and just being able to talk to them about their experiences and their career paths, I think the firm culture is one that I am really interested in joining, and the work that you do is very sophisticated. I've also followed a lot of the cases that you've worked on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, and those are the types of people that I'd like to be learning from.
Sounds great. That sounds great. Tell me a little bit about your past work experience then.
Sure. So I actually don't have a legal background. Before law school, I worked as a client manager at an international trade firm. But I think I learned a lot of skills that are transferable to the law firm environment. I managed clients, and I think similarly to the law firm, you have some difficult clients and you have some great clients to work with. So building those relationships and learning how to manage those relationships was something that I really worked on while I was there. And it was a very small company, but I think one of the advantages of working in a small company is that you can wear many hats. It was a very fast-paced environment. There was a lot of multitasking involved. So developing those skills, I think, also prepared me for this position.
Great. Well, tell me about sort of what motivates you then personally in some of the kind of opportunities that you've had, and just even personally, sort of what are the things that motivate you?
I really like new intellectual challenges, going into a field that I'm not very familiar with, and working with people that I don't know before, that I haven't known before, building a team and figuring out what the best way is to tackle an issue. I think the whole process leading up to the resolution of a certain issue is something that's very interesting to me. And then I've done a little bit in law school, but I know you have more challenges, obviously, in the legal career itself.
That sounds good. How about maybe switching gears a little bit, what do you consider your biggest accomplishment?
I think my biggest accomplishment in the last couple of years, like I mentioned before, is taking advantage of all the opportunities that have been presented to me at law school. I really tried to focus in on opportunities that I wouldn't be able to get anywhere else. So I externed for a judge, for example, and I not only was exposed to the the legal process, but I also was really able to hone my research and writing skills. I worked with some great clerks that were able to critique my work, and I think I really developed my writing skills at that time. I also was able to intern at a legal clinic where, again, I got to work with
legal clients and write briefs and work with other attorneys that have a lot of experience to learn what their strategies were going to be for certain cases and how they approach certain issues.
Good, good. Well, with all those experiences, can you share maybe a challenge that you've had on the job and how you overcame that?
I think one thing that I really learned and worked on is working with people that come from a variety of viewpoints. And I really do enjoy working with a team and working with a group, like I mentioned before. But I think, that's a skill that you have to develop. And working with people that come from different backgrounds, you realize that everyone brings something to the table, and you can really learn something from everyone, whether it's a student or an experienced attorney or even your client who may not be as familiar with the legal work. So I think that was a very big challenge at first, but I really worked on that. I've tried to work on that as I've gone through law school, and I hope to continue working on that here as well.
And I think there's a lot of key strengths that you had just reviewed kind of in that story, but what do you consider are your key strengths?
I think that I am a leader in terms of being open to other people's perspectives and really learning from them as well, but also making sure that I can lead a group of people to get something done, to meet deadlines. At the end of the day, as lawyers, obviously, we have deadlines to meet and clients to please, and so balancing working with a group as well as making sure that things get done is something that I really enjoy doing and I'm passionate about as well. And I think also working in a client field, you really have to know how to manage relationships and build relationships with, at the end of the day, someone that's your customer. And that's something that I have experience in, obviously not in the legal field, but I think I can bring a lot to the table in terms of building and managing relationships.
That sounds great. So tell me, so here's one question for you. So why should we hire you?
I think aside from my background and my education, I have talked to a lot of alumni that are at your firm, and they have only great things to say. One of the things that I really asked about was, what is your day-to-day like, and do you see a professional path here? And all of them have said and shared many concrete stories where they've seen their career develop here and they see themselves long-term here. I want to be somewhere where I see a long-term career path and that I can learn from people that are doing sophisticated work with sophisticated clients. And so, I think hiring me would be hopefully a short-term goal for you, and it's not for me either. So I think it would be a great fit for me, and I'd like to see myself here in the future as well.
Great. That sounds great. So the last question I have for you is, do you have any questions for me?
I would be interested, since you are a partner here, what is your favorite aspect of the firm and working here, and what is your day-to-day like?
I would say a lot like what you had mentioned is the collaborative aspect, and then at the end of the day, it's getting the deal done. So that sort of feeling of accomplishment, that's what really motivates me and what I really like about this role. And you'll find a lot of people share that type of commitment and that team collaborative spirit. So it was very nice to talk to you.
It's nice meeting you as well.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for that interview. I'm going to ask, so the next 20-30 minutes we're going to evaluate the interviews, what each one did right, what each one did not do right. And so Jane and Young, would you please come up? As well as we're going to ask our Alice, would you come up so that you can also critique? And just give comments as to, and the audience, there's going to be a microphone that's going to go around, and the audience can certainly comment as to what you thought, each one did right, and how we can learn from that. So while they're setting up, and Ken, I have a question for you, and Alice, I think you can answer that. It was curious to me, Alice was asking who went through the interview when we had a registered nurse going through an interview process. And so in my mind, a registered nurse, yeah, we need Jenny up here as well, our college professor. Yeah.
In my mind, a registered nurse just, takes temperature and is in the hospital. What does that have to do with community service and leadership? Why is the employer asking that question about community service and leadership in an RN position? We have
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Well, this is just a general thing. So for me, when I'm looking for the various capabilities, it's what you just said is leadership. So no matter what it was that they worked on outside of just their professional path, that demonstrates to me that they can engage with a broader set of people, or lower people, and then also work in a team and get things done. So collaborate and just, it demonstrates a little bit more well-roundedness, if you will. So it just kind of gives a little bit of dynamic view to that person's profile. That's what I want to look for.
Alice?
I have a slightly different perspective on that, and I also totally agree with them as well. But if you look at bucket 3, we look at values and motivation. So we want the values of the nurse to match the values of the organization. So if she's mission-oriented, if she really cares about the patient, if she's motivated by the opportunity because she wants to help people, she's involved in the community, takes her free time to help people not only inside of work but outside of work. Those are the types of things that we look at in what I call bucket 3 that we want to match with our organization.
So you're looking at character, personal characteristics. Okay, so it ties together. It's not your competency or skills, technical skills, but about your personal characteristics and how you work with colleagues. Okay, so let's go back to the technical side. I love these 2 interviews. So as the hiring manager, what were your thoughts about interview A and interview B?
Okay, so for me, I thought both of the ladies did a very good job. So, but what differentiated Young from Jane, Young really focused on the skills and capabilities that she's bringing to this organization. And she even used the word fit. So that's really what you're looking for is there a fit? So when Alice is mentioning, is there a values fit? Is there a capabilities fit? It kind of comes down to, is there a good fit? So that's really where her whole entire talk really came into, really elaborated on everything that she answered was profiling and highlighting a skill or capability that she had that demonstrated to me that she would be a fit for the organization, a fit for the role, a fit for this opportunity. And so Jane, although she's very enthusiastic and also had good background and setup, she didn't focus on the fit for the organization and her role. It was more of, oh, you guys are doing really cool work with some high-profile clients, but she didn't mention sort of how her experience could enhance that particular role. So that's kind of the differentiation as we try to design even the role play to try to bring out.
So we mentioned from the hiring. Oh, Jen, you got a comment? Yeah.
So from a sort of a writerly perspective, right? I mean, something that I do tell my students is, look, your resume is sort of, it kind of documents in relative detail, but everything that you've done, right, and that you consider to be important. Your cover letter, if you do have one, kind of goes one step further. It's like when you're writing an essay, right? And you have to elaborate on your important main ideas, right? And so your cover letter takes maybe 2 of those, so it's fewer of those points, but then you go into more detail. And then in the interview, I usually tell my students, then you're going into even more detail, right? You're picking out a couple things that you really, really want to demonstrate. You want to tell the story, right? So it's a very narrative process. And each step, from the resume to the cover letter to your interview, becomes more and more narrative, right? Which means that it requires more detailed description, all that stuff that you want to have in a paper.
So I want to follow up. That just seems like branding, right? I mean, this is who you are, technically. And then you want to follow up at the interview, and it's really, negative way of saying is just got to sell yourself. What was that employer? What was your definition of resume? Putting down a 1-page document to sell yourself to the employer. I mean, that's in a nutshell. But we have to do it artfully, right? So what's the difference between, as interviewees, I'd like Jane, what's the difference between bragging and presenting yourself and branding yourself as who you are?
So for this interview, because I knew I was coming on as the weak one, I tried my best not to kind of do a round circle of, not just what I did, but kind of what Young did really well was kind of bring it back to how it's like helpful to the company. So for me, I was just like, yeah, I'm like really great at this. Like I did X, Y, and Z. But how does that affect anything, So I think Young really well showed how, you have a positive, but how does that affect the company?
Yes. Use the buckets again.
Yeah.
So this is really bucket two.
Yeah.
So it's not just what you do it, but how you do it. So I'll let Young talk about just how she went on about how she did it.
So I think there's a difference between being confident and being able to portray tangible accomplishments and erring on the side of bragging. So what I tried to do was, instead of saying, oh, I work really great in a team, I said, there was this one instance when I worked in a clinic case, and this was a challenge, and this is how I overcame the challenge. So through a story, I tried to, have the effect of that story should have been, the takeaway should have been, oh, this person works really well in a group and works really well in a team, but without me saying, oh, I'm a really great team player. So I think through different tangible stories, and especially if you present something as a challenge and you show how you overcame that challenge, is a really effective way of highlighting your accomplishments without sounding like you're bragging or pretentious.
And just one quick comment. The one thing that also mentioned, if you guys noticed or remember, she embellished with, it's something that I'm really proud of. And so she was able to kind of give herself a little pat on the back without sounding too egotistical or anything. But again, I think Gina had said, you have to be your own strongest self-advocate. And so that's really what she was doing in the interview, is advocating for her skills and capabilities. So I thought that was really good. Good example of that.
Yeah, you guys all look like so confident and so assured. You went through interviews. What did it feel like? Could you share with us will you share with us what your round of interviews felt like? Did you ever get nervous? Was there ever a time you screwed up? Were you ever late? Share with us, and then Jane.
I think, so in law school you go through, I think I did probably 20-something interviews in a week. And your interviews are full days, so you do like 8 30-minute interviews throughout a day. So it does become grueling, and your face hurts at the end of the day from smiling at everybody, and you're meeting different people, so you're telling the same story over and over, so you feel like a broken record. But I think something that a lot of the panelists have touched on is being really enthusiastic, because you might have told the same story. It might be the 5th time that day you told the story of this challenge that you had, but to them, they haven't heard it before, and you're just another candidate. So really, I think making that effort to keep that enthusiasm up and keep kind of your game face on, I guess, for the entire day is something that's really important.
So you're acting. You're acting. For the 8th time, you're acting. How about you, Jane? You're a natural actress, so maybe it's easier for you?
So basically, I feel like if you landed the interview, you already have the confidence scale. Basically, you have the bucket one to land the interview. So the second, task of the whole interview is to basically sell yourself. And kind of what Jenny was saying, it's like you want to tell a story about yourself interesting enough that they want to hire you, that they want to work with you. Because they already know that you're qualified to do the job. But do they really want to see you every day and work with you every day? So that's kind of like the number one thing when I go on interviews. I want to make sure that they like me, that I'm funny, that they can trust me. And you have to sell yourself. You have to tell the story. Make them interested in you.
Okay, I'm going to put Dr. Yang, Esther Yang, who is also a hiring person at Abbott Labs. I'm going to put you on in next, not now, but let's get a mic ready for her. After this, we're going to talk about body language. And then we're going to have Dr. Yang comment about, would you hire either one of these folks, and then why? And 2 years ago, she was a panelist at our KOWIN event, and she told a very interesting story. She said, after 2-3 minutes of meeting this person, I know I want to hire this guy or girl. And at that point, it's me selling her to come to work for me, not her selling to me. So I want to sort of piggyback on that. But before we go to that, I want to talk about body language. So, we talk about confidence and competency and all of that, right? So, you know, I think our body language says a lot about who we are. So the two interviews, you're the hiring person. What did you think about the body languages of these two actresses?
Well, I think that actually in Alice's talk, she had a bullet point about leaning in. It's a bit of you demonstrate your physical engagement and sort of your mental engagement. So that was, you know, she was poised. She didn't have a lot of arm movement like this, you know, so it was very professional and it was not distracting. So it's one of the things you don't want to distract the conversation. You really want to focus on sort of what you bring and kind of focus on the skill and such. So in Jane, she was very more flamboyant with her body language, and that might fit in a certain industry, but for this particular role, I think it was a little distracting. And then she also had a little bit of a leaning back, and you know, so it's just subtle things, but it can differentiate you.
So I read in Monster.com about leaning in, right? So you know, there's lots of talk about lean in. Charles Sandberg wrote about, you know, leaning in. So one of the suggestions of the body language of interview is to lean in, to get very personal. So it's about that executive who couldn't make eye contact. He didn't lean in, right? So how do you lean in? What does that mean? How do you do that naturally?
I think you have to do a good job of it naturally. She was poised. She kind of had her posture a little bit tilted forward, and she was still very confident in her tone, and not to like, what do you say, you know, hanging in every word. So she, you know, had that level of sort of confidence and poise in her presence.
Can you address talking too much? So what is the difference between, you know, I'm trying to convey as much detail to you about this particular situation, and also, or the possibility of just talking too much?
I think the important piece here is to listen to the question, make sure you're actually answering it, you're not rambling, going off on a tangent, and just go things that are not relevant to you. So this goes back to the other example and what I mentioned earlier about that formula of situation, action, results. So if you just stick to that formula, I think you're 99% guaranteed that you'll actually be answering the question. So as she did before, name the situation. There was a clinic that she had to work in and work with clients, etc. What was the action? What did you do specifically? Because of your actions, what was the positive outcome? If you just stick with that, I think you will try to kind of rein in how much you can say and just remain on top.
Can you repeat that SAR again? Yeah. Situation.
Situation. What was the troubled situation? What was the problem that your organization, your employer had that they had asked you to address? What was your action? What did you do specifically? One thing that we also do sometimes subconsciously is we want to emphasize teams. So we keep saying, we did this, we did that, we took this action. What did you do specifically to help that outcome? And then finally is the results. Because of you, your leadership, your actions, your team, whatever it is, what was the positive outcome of the situation? So that's just something to keep in mind.
So body language, clothing, and then we're going to go to Dr. Yang right after clothing. So we talked about conservative law firms. You know, during our practice, we really prepare for these conferences. We meet many times and we talk about, you know, stockings or no stockings. I have stockings on. Who does not have stockings on today? The professor and the actress does not have it. The lawyer has stockings on. And these business people have business suits on. So your dress, right? It has to fit the occasion. Have you, as your hiring manager, you're in the banking IT industry, have you had a situation where the person was dressed maybe appropriately, but somehow something was not a fit or a little too much? Any situation like that?
Not so much in the interview process. So I work for a very conservative bank, and so most of the interviewees or the candidates that I've spoken to, they're pretty blue suit, white shirt, you know, so that's not the issue. At work though, so I work, sometimes I'm in an operations center, sometimes I'm at head office. You still have to be mindful of your physical presence, and there are some girls that come in, they're like leggings and whatever, and they're just way too casual. Even though you have casual Fridays, that doesn't mean you're coming in a tracksuit, right? So you just kind of have to be sort of mindful of that.
Or low cut.
Yeah, be
Right.
not too provocative, not too suggestive. I mean, again, you just don't want to be a distraction. So you want your work to be sort of the highlight, not people talking about your hair or your blouse or whatever, so.
So that will be part of your branding, right? Yeah. Dr. Yin, did you have a comment about the 2 interviews?
Yeah, I'm just very impressed with the role play. Everybody did a great job.
Yeah, let's give them a round of applause. You guys are much too shy. Come on, give it up for them.
But I think there's a little bit of differentiation between Young and Jane, I believe. And the part when you interview somebody, and typically, you see, I represent more the technical area. So it might be a little different in banking or law or other areas, but I think there are at least 3 general common themes. Number one, very strong first impression, and the way you do that is really being able to connect with the interviewer, and it's really the body language or the way you dress and whatever it is that you gotta be able to connect with the interviewer. That'd be the first thing. And so that's a kind of first impression. And then of course you have to demonstrate your competency. And the way you demonstrate your competency is doing your homework, and it's all the things that's already kind of mentioned. So you need to kind of learn a little bit about the firm or the company and be very factual. So numbers or, the sales number is this, and last year it went 50% high, what things that you've done to drive that, things like that. So be ready to ask the challenging questions, and then really demonstrate the ability to communicate. I mean, that's really fundamentally the most critical thing, because you've got to work with people, you've got to lead the people, and different things. And so ability to communicate in a very short time, be able to demonstrate that you can. And then the last part would be really, we are always looking for people who know how to solve problems. Doesn't matter what kind of challenges are thrown at you, you are able to go about and solving problems. So I know Young had some, I've kind of, went to alumni and did the homework, and then in an internship situation, had some specific kind of examples that she gave. So that was really showing the ability to solve that problem, and also emphasize the fact that it's a really team environment. So I think that would be really something to consider and accentuate. So really practice, almost like interview process is like performing. So.
It is performing, right? Yeah. So I want to just address some of the high school students here. You're right. You're thinking, they're talking about resumes and interviews. Why am I here? Like, this is like 10 years later, right? You have no idea how soon those 10 years come. So this is something of a practice run where you start thinking about it, and you're networking. You know now, if you ever have a question about interview or resume, you can call. You can call her. She's public, You can go to the Lake County and actually Google her. No, you don't even have to do that. Just go on KOWINUSA.org, and she's there. So you know the resources there. But we do this to provide resources to young people. So in your handout, I just want to give a plug for this because it's really important. There's one handout that's how-to topics. It talks about branding and self-promotion, networking, job search, internship, interviewing and resume skills, and prepare for college and graduate school. So if you go to this document, there are all kinds of information as to how to, because this is our pain that we wrote down for you. This is the mistake that we made, so that you don't have to make those same mistakes that's here. The other one is resource list by bibliography. So there's all kinds of websites and guides for you to go and look at. So you talk about preparation. Future job is all about preparation. If you're not prepared, you're not going to get that job. If you're not prepared, you're not going to get to go to that college that you want to. If you're not prepared, you're not going to get that salary. So these are sort of for the young people. I want to sort of go back, now jump back to the, you know, you got through the interview, right? And you get that call. You know, like, we would like to have you come work for us, right? So, oh, that's great. How much am I getting paid? What about some of those salary negotiations? What's appropriate and what's not, and how do you do that? Alice?
I think this is going back to knowing your audience. So if your skill set is so specific, like you are a rocket scientist and only 10 people in the world can do what you can do, then you have all the leverage you want. You can ask for more. You can ask for stock. You can ask for benefits. You can ask for more vacation days. If you are first year out of U of I, going into a PwC as a first year entry level position, I'm sorry, but you don't have any leverage. If you don't want it, somebody else will take the job. So I think it's just a matter of the higher up you go, you can realize that you have more to offer the organization and you can negotiate better. But as an entry level, I think this is the time, some of the panelists said, no matter how menial the position, put your best effort forward, do the best that you can, really show off what you can offer the organization, and more will follow. So in the beginning stages, I think the negotiation phase is less relevant. In organizations, you can probably agree, there are tiers, there are bands. 1 to 3 years experience is this number of dollars, 3 to 5 years is this number. I think that's just when you're building your organization, your reputation, your own personal brand, and proving yourself. And then when you get to the level of some of these panelists today, that's when you can really use some of your negotiation.
So I want to hold on one second, because I want to follow up with Han. So you hire, okay, and I address this because in my practice, I work with a lot of HR people. And what I get is I get their resume and I get their salary. And I get a history of all the negotiation emails, which is pretty amazing. But what I notice over and over and over again, and I have to say this, it really makes me mad, women get paid less than men. This is not a study. It's just $4, $5, $10, $15,000, and I don't understand why. So I want to sort of, as a hiring manager, I want to sort of, what is the leverage you have? Because HR has a sheet. This position, project engineer, fellow engineer, high level 195,000, low level 140. The man comes with 185,000, the woman comes with 155,000. Why?
I think it's a complex question that I probably don't even have the background to really fully explain, but I think it happens over time, right? So when you enter in at an entry-level position, it kind of goes back to advocating for yourself and being able to take those opportunities to ask for additional, salary or whatever it is that you're negotiating for. So you have to ask. So the first thing is you have to actually have the self-confidence and know your audience enough. So in my organization over the last couple of years, one year we didn't give out any merit increases. It was like 0. And typically in my industry, like 3% is the norm for your annual vote or your annual merit. And then if you're really sort of a top performer, it's maybe 5, 6, 7%. 7 is very high. So because once you're in the organization, it's actually, there's sort of HR guidelines. So it's not like me as a hiring manager, I don't really have a lot of flexibility to give you another 20,000 because HR will catch that because there's equity and sort of corporate sort of policies in place. So, but where you are advancing and getting another sort of opportunity, you do want to open up that conversation because it opens up the conversation for expectation. At least they know and recognize that you are expecting and have, yourself in mind and can advocate for yourself, and even that is valuable. So when the next opportunity comes up, they'll keep that in mind. But I don't know, Alice, if you want to just as an industry and a practice, women, we are, 30%? We're paid 30% of what the man is, or whatever the statistic is. But there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. But where you can advocate for yourself, I would definitely encourage you to do that.
So the question, so the key is asking. Alice?
It's not just asking, it's how you ask for it. So this goes back to keeping documentation of your accomplishments and what you did. If last year you improved your sales by 15% and your EBITDA by 2, whatever it is, document that. It gives you a reason. It gives you that confidence that you need to ask for it. Just saying, well, I've been here 3 years, so I deserve a raise. That's just not going to cut it. You need to say, this is what I did during 2009 to 2012, and here are the facts and numbers and figures to support that, and then you can go in, going back to more leverage. So again, it's asking for it, but it's also how you ask for it.
Jenny?
I just had a quick comment for something that we were talking about earlier about entry-level salaries. I think one of the best things that you can do for yourself before you go to negotiate, I was lucky because in my field, it's, well, I guess in some ways lucky, in some ways not. It's a very rigid step system, so you kind of fall in based on your level of experience and education. It's very clear what you earn, it's kind of set in stone. However, in most fields, they're not like that, right? And so, you know, one of your most valuable resources is Google. There are websites like Glassdoor, I believe it's glassdoor.com, is that right? And a couple other websites. I hope you guys are familiar with this, and if not, write this down. Because you go on them and you can type in what job you're applying for, and also what's important is geographically, right? Where is their salary in that job is going to be very different in San Francisco than it is here, right? I mean, it's a huge differential. So just, and what it tells you is it kind of gives you, because people submit this stuff anonymously, like what they earn at what position. It gives you sort of a range, right, of the salaries, possible salaries that people get at different levels, entry level, mid level, high level, etc. And so what that does, though, I mean, even though it gives you a range, it gives you an idea of what, like if they're trying to screw you over, you know that, right? Or if they're rewarding you and you already know kind of coming in what the average salary for that is. So educating yourself about that, that's actually huge, right? And you're not coming in cold. And this goes for any kind of job. But I mean, and as for the why women get paid less than men, I mean, we can go into a whole sociological discussion about, you know, women raising children and also women being also more likely to be the caregivers of their elderly parents, etc., etc.
Sure, there's all these complexities, but my point is that even within this organization, I see them doing the same thing. They're getting paid $5,000 to $10,000 less. And so my sense is that, and as I interview these women, they're very timid and they don't ask. That was sort of my impression of that. By the way, the salary, you can look it up at glassdoor.com, and it is in your handout. So you can look at the salaries by geographic areas. So it's about research, right? I'm going to digress a little bit, and for the benefit of some of the high school students here, I want to sort of have you go, well, we've heard your story about, you know, sort of wandering around and just need to be a nun, which we found fascinating. But from Jane, in high school, what did you want to major in, and how did you end up, and what is your major now?
Okay, so this is kind of interesting. In high school, I was like the super nerd. Like, basically I wanted to be a scientist, I wanted to be a marine biologist or an archaeologist, so I applied all the IVs. I was like, yeah, I'm going to be like a PhD, get my doctorate, all that stuff. And then once I got to college, I was like, I don't really care. Everything that I thought I was supposed to be, I realized it really wasn't that important to me. And the more and more I got to realize who I was as a person, I realized, you know what? Money doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things of my life, and I want to do what I want to do. And for me, that was filmmaking, that was writing, that was doing something artistic with people. And so after Northwestern, I actually took 3 years, and I traveled the world. I lived in Bali for a year, I taught in Korea, I hopped around islands, and I came back, and now I'm going to grad school. So honestly, like, all these women here, they're so, they're amazing. I mean, if you look at their resume, I'm just like, oh my gosh, what did I do with my life? But, you know, I know deep down, I want to live a life that makes me happy. So, and again, you can change your career whenever, how you are, at whatever point. So maybe I'll be a lawyer one day. For now, I'm a filmmaker, and I'm happy with that.
I want to do a public service announcement. Jane O and KOWIN produced a documentary called Trailblazers, 4 Korean American women's stories. So they're for sale, they're on our website. So in Jane and KOWIN, we're going to do a second documentary for the balance of this year. So, you know, be thankful. You're going to know an Academy Award filmmaker in 20 years. So let's give a shout out for Jane.
I
more process of elimination. So I knew I didn't like math. I knew I didn't like science. And I knew I had an interest in government and political science. So that's what I majored in while I was in college. And I think I probably switched my major 4 or 5 times. I was at some point a communications major, a psychology major, a sociology major. And at this point I'm glad because I think I learned a lot in each of the classes that I took, but it took a little time to figure out that I still wanted to major in political science, and I minored in international studies. And for a lot of poli-sci majors, law school is the natural next step. And I knew that's what I wanted to do, but I took a couple years off as well to work to make sure that that was a commitment that I wanted to make. So I worked for my dad for a couple of years actually, and I did manage clients at his international trade firm. And that was a very meaningful personal experience to be involved in a family business and to really understand and appreciate what my parents did. And after that I was ready to go to law school, so that's what I've been doing for the past 3 years. And now I'm doing something completely unrelated, I guess, to what I was doing before. But I think the most interesting thing about law school is that you can really do a lot of things. And I don't think I'm going to be a lawyer for the rest of my life, but I think that having a law degree can open up a lot of doors.
You mean after spending $150,000 in tuition, you don't know if you're going to be a lawyer and you're going to a law firm? She majored in political science, Gina majored in political science, I majored in political science, and we all became lawyers. No, that's right, you don't have to, but I think it's great training, especially. Let me give you a tip for some of the women. Being a lawyer, having that credential is pretty cool. Because sometimes people are fooled by it. You call and say, I'm a lawyer. They will give you information they're not supposed to give you. It is just amazing. It really is amazing. But I want to give a plug for Gina Parr because she said she wanted to mention this and she didn't. And I think it's so important. So she works for a big law firm called Better Price. And it's been around since 1950s. And they have 5 offices around the world. Yeah? And 315 lawyers. She is the first minority female equity partner ever in the history of the firm. She's a trailblazer. Isn't that amazing? And so, on one hand, she's got this great pressure to bring along other people with her. On the other hand, if you think of the reality, this is 2014, guys. This is 2014, where this is the first female minority equity partner in the firm's history ever. So it just says something. And that reminds me, I shared this with Miriam. In 1977, I was at Lane Tech, a sophomore, and I had woodshop. And the woodshop teacher was Mr. Bono, bald head, fat, sort of, I feel sorry for you, young lady, kind of a guy. I had A's in all my woodshop projects, and at the end of the semester, I got my grade, and it was a B. And I went up to Mr. Bono, with all my confidence, I went up to him and I said, Mr. Bono, how come I got a B when I should got an A? I kid you not, he looked at me and he said, I never gave a girl an A, and I'm not going to start now. 1977. And you know what I did? Nothing. I had no one to go to. I couldn't talk to my parents because they were too busy working. I had no friends, I had no mentors. So to this day, it still angers me and it pains me to think that some other girl is still going through now when it says, because you're a girl, I'm not going to give you an A. My deserved A. I literally said to myself, it's a B. I got A's and everything, it's okay. I'm not going to make a fuss. Oh, I wish I could meet Mr. Bono today. But this is the reason why we have lots of responsibilities as trailblazers to give back to the next generation, because we don't ever want another girl to go through those kinds of situations where they can't speak up. And you know what? Out there, it may not be in the United States, or maybe it's in the United States, but in other countries, in Bangladesh, China, there's so many young girls, I'm sure, who have gone through a worse experience than getting a B, who are going through. So I didn't mean to get so emotional, but it really breaks my heart every time I think of that. So now I've totally lost train of my thought. Could we have a time check? How much time do we have? About 5 minutes to wrap up? Is that good? Yeah. So we're going to actually take some questions from the audience. This is the time where you could speak up, but please be respectful. We have 100 people in the room, and we want to be able to. So we have a mic. We have a mic that's going around. Is there anybody who has a question? I have tons of questions. So there's a mic that's going around. So CJ, our intern, is going to go around and ask if there's questions. I'm going to ask a. Yes, please. Yes, Dr. Park. Yes.
In the bibliography used in the NPR website, they had a short story about women not asking for salary raise. And in that, they said the women were good at asking higher salary for others, but they could not ask more for themselves. So please look up that.
It's in the resource. It's in the resource guide.
You can either listen or read.
Right, it's in the resource guide. As a matter of fact, as I was doing research, Monster.com had a very similar article as well. Women are not good negotiating for themselves. They're great at negotiating for somebody else. So doesn't that tell you gotta hire women lawyers? I mean, they're great at negotiating for other people. So I kid you not, I had a client who told me that I don't like to fight, and he said, you shouldn't be a lawyer. So, actually lawyers negotiate and make things work. They don't just fight. So I just wanted to put a disclaimer. That leads to me a disclaimer that the KOWIN wants to do. We taped today, and this is going to go on our website, just to let you know that this is a public event, and we taped the event so that we can publicize this activity for the future. So I guess I want to address lastly, if there's no, yes, please. Go ahead, please stand up, tell me who you are, and then you can ask your question.
I'm Jessica. I'm going to be a senior in high school, and my question was about for colleges when applying, if any of you guys knew, if checking off the ethnicity as being Asian, an advantage or a disadvantage.
That'd be great. Maybe Jenny, you should take that. Appropriate? Yeah.
That's a really good question, and it's a very vexed one. It's something that I think, especially right now, actually, there's a lot of articles that have been coming out, a lot of people doing research on that exact same question. And the reason why that's so sort of controversial right now is because there's been a lot of studies done that a lot of prestigious universities, colleges and universities, are actually discriminating against Asian students, or students from Asian descent, because there are so many, very successful, highly motivated Asian American students who are applying to American universities. And so, I'm just thinking about my own experience. This was a while back, right? At the UCs, I remember Berkeley was about, I'd say about 15 to 20% Asian American, right? And UCI, which actually, University of California, Irvine, which I live pretty close to during a couple years of high school, they had about 30% Asian Americans, right? And I think right now it's about 50%, right? So Asian Americans are very, very highly represented at the sort of more prestigious institutions. So if you are thinking, okay, well, is it because I'm a minority? Will that actually help improve my chances? Actually, the opposite, right? But again, that shouldn't deter you, A, from checking off that box, and B, to using that as, your experiences as an Asian American young woman to show how qualified you are as a student, right? There's so many other ways besides that to prove to admission committees how good a candidate you are. But again, that is a very, very vexed question right now. So thank you for asking that.
It's a great question. Yeah. Any other question? No? I want to talk about self-confidence. Self-confidence, right? So, not to offend some of the men here, but lots of times I think men just sort of like fake it. I mean, I think they may not have it, but they, they say, I got it. And I don't know that women can sort of fake it. Like, I have it. I think especially as Korean women, right, we're sort of encouraged to be modest, honest, quiet, subservient. I think that was the sort of the subliminal message that I grew up with. And so I want to sort of ask the audience about what sort of self-confidence, you're all confident women, but are there times when your sort of self-confidence is shaken, and what do you do about that? Young?
I think, yeah, that happens pretty often, and I think sometimes it happens in an interview setting. To bring it back to what we were talking about, when you're asked a question, sometimes you can prepare all you want for an interview, but you get a question that you weren't expecting, and in your head you're like, oh my god, what am I going to say? But you can't have that reaction in an interview. So I think just taking a moment whenever you're in a situation like that where you're doubting your own confidence, or you have a lot of thoughts running through your head. I've heard so much for this interview, and now I'm going to blow because I don't know the answer to this question. It might be going through my head, but taking the time to regroup and portraying yourself as, I think, confident and competent, going back to your core skills, is something that always helps if you're ever, doubting yourself, or, in a moment where you're not sure if you feel confident about the situation.
You see a lot of executives, right? I mean, $1 million salary folks, and what are their, like, how do they exude confidence? Is that? I know it's a hard question, but you talked about being confident, right? I mean, Alice, in your own slide, you said be confident. What does that mean, and how do you show it? When you don't have it, how do you fake it?
I think it comes down to the preparedness aspect again. As long as you're prepared, I think this is an example Gina gave earlier about her going into the hearing with her partner, and he, as partners do, they don't have the material. They just count on you to just have it, or whatever it is. And she walked in and came in and swooped in and gave the presentation, or whatever it was, because she was prepared. She did all the homework. She did all the work. I think that was a piece of advice I was given when I first started my career: fake it till you make it. If you do it long enough, people will start to believe that you actually know what you're doing. And also, as an Asian American woman, I realize that I get this a lot. I look like I'm 24 and I sound like I'm 12. What do you know? But again, I think it goes down to knowledge and being prepared. If you can exude that, and if you can demonstrate that, then people have to start taking it seriously.
Ken, self-confidence. You have a lot of that.
You have to fake it. I remember something that Cheryl Sandberg said. It's something to the along the lines of men, if they're going for that next job, even if they have 50% of the qualifications, they'll go for it. But women, we wait until we have, at least 95%, I'm not qualified. So there's just a little bit of kind of that, something going on there. So, but personally, I tend to over-prepare because I've been in situations where like, oh, crap, I didn't have that number ready, or I didn't have that, specific status, right? So I do project management, and projects go red. So there's this whole red, you're green, you're on track, you're amber, you're arrest, you're red, or you're serious about a minute or date. So there are times when I have to speak on behalf of a project that I'm not running, but I need to know the details about that. And I've been in situations in meetings where, what is the key risk that they're managing? And I won't know. I'll be like, I think it's something to do with testing, but I'll have to get back to you. And so when that happens, you have to just own that, maybe that thing that you're not as prepared for. Then you have to follow it up quickly and close the loop. And then if you say you're going to follow up, and then follow up with good, crisp detail about whatever it is. But that over-preparedness is personally how I deal with it. There are people who can just wing it, and I'm not really that type of person. I have to feel like I've got my story straight and all my details, and then I can feel prepared.
What if you did the best you can? You're walking into a deal and you know you're not quite prepared. Like, you just found some new information. It's like, oh shoot, all of this stuff, it happens, right? I mean, you could, some new information comes and you're not prepared. How do you deal with that stress?
How do you deal with the stress? I think Young said it too. You have to take a moment, try to not let it consume you. You know, go back to your core skill set of what you do know and highlight the positive or highlight whatever that piece of information is. And try not to let it overcome you. So which is hard to do, you gotta fake it. But, you know, this is where I think practice and experience comes into.
It's up here in your
Exactly.
mind, right?
So the fact that you're in a situation where you felt like you were unprepared and, oh no, I didn't really, you know, handle that the best, those are really good experiences to have.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a mistake unless you don't learn from it, right? So you have to learn from that experience. You have to kind of, okay, well, what could I have done differently? You got to reflect, then you have to bring the learning back. So.
Two concrete things about the confidence aspect again. This is something I find myself doing a lot. Don't start your sentence with I think. If you know it, just say it. Don't say I think. That already diminishes your level of credibility. The second thing is we as women, in terms of moments of nervousness, we tend to use fillers, giggles, whatever it might be. Eliminate those. That's going to also throw them off. You are not going to look confident if you're giggling. That's just something I learned.
Yeah, so rather than giggling, I want to give you a tip because I recently, in preparation for this, I recently watched a TED Talk, right? And it's Amy Cuddy, who is a Harvard Business School professor, social psychologist. And I had to write this down. Your doctors are going to think I'm really nuts, but I'm not scientific. Testosterone gives you, when that goes up, it's the dominance feeling that goes up. Cortisol is when your stress level goes up. So in order to increase, sort of artificially, your testosterone, they said, do a power pose. Go to the bathroom and do a power pose like this, like Superwoman, for 2 minutes. I kid you not. Watch the TED Talk. It's really, really cool. Do this and do this. Do this for 2 minutes. And then calm down, put your lipstick on, and go out the door and just say, hi, I'm here. This gives you the confidence because she said, we talked about faking it. She used the words to it. Do it, to it, no, do it until you can fake it. Fake it until you become it. So it just gives you this confidence, your body language, you're thinking, I can do this. I may not have all the facts, but I can do this. And that is the message that KOWIN women would like to give to each other as sisters, is that, yeah, we can do this. We can encourage each other and do whatever it is that we want to do and accomplish. And this is the message for the high schoolers and the young people in this room. Well, we want to thank you. I know it's been a long day. So thank you for coming. Thank you. That's wonderful. Amazing.